The icy November wind cut through Yuri Patterson's worn sweater like a knife, but he barely noticed as he clutched his daughter's hand tighter, guiding 7-year-old Bella through the crowded evening streets of downtown Boston. They had just left the small Italian restaurant where he worked as a line cook. His shift running later than expected because Carlos had called in sick again. And now Bella was tired, her little feet dragging as they headed toward the bus stop. The streetlights cast long shadows across the pavement, and the temperature had dropped considerably since they had arrived that morning. "Daddy, I'm cold," Bella murmured, pressing closer to his side. Yuri stopped immediately, kneeling down to zip her jacket all the way up to her chin. "I know, sweetheart. The bus will be here soon and it will be warm inside, okay? Then we'll go home and have hot chocolate." She nodded, her dark curls bouncing beneath her knit hat, and gave him a tired smile that made his heart ache. Bella never complained, not really, even though he knew their life was harder than it should be for a kid her age. Since her mother had left 3 years ago, it had been just the two of them against the world, and sometimes Yuri felt like he was failing her. But then she would smile at him like that, with complete trust in her eyes, and he would remember why he worked double shifts and skipped meals to make sure she had everything she needed. They were halfway to the bus stop when Yuri noticed the woman sitting on the bench near the old fountain that had been drained for the winter. She was wearing what looked like an expensive dress, the kind you saw in department store windows, but it was thin and entirely inappropriate for the weather. Her arms were wrapped around herself, and even from a distance, he could see her shivering. Her long, honey-colored hair whipped around her face in the wind, and she seemed utterly miserable. Yuri's first instinct was to keep walking. He had his own daughter to worry about, and he had learned the hard way that getting involved in other people's problems rarely ended well. But something about the way she sat there, looking so lost and vulnerable, made him pause. He thought about what he would want someone to do if Bella ever found herself cold and alone somewhere. "Wait here for just a second, honey," he told Bella, guiding her to stand beside a storefront that blocked some of the wind. "I'll be right back." He shrugged off his jacket as he approached the bench. It was not much, just a canvas work jacket lined with fleece that he had bought from a thrift store 2 years ago, but it was warm and it was better than nothing. The woman looked up as he came near, and he was struck by how beautiful she was despite her obvious distress. Her hazel eyes were red-rimmed, and her makeup was smudged, like she had been crying. "Excuse me," Yuri said, his voice gentle. "You look like you could use this more than I can right now." He held out the jacket, and she stared at it like she could not quite believe what she was seeing. Up close, he could see that her dress was indeed expensive, silk or something similar, and her shoes were elegant heels that looked painful. She was not dressed for the weather at all, and he wondered briefly what had happened to land her out here like this. "I cannot take your jacket," she said, her voice hoarse from the cold. "You will freeze." "I will be fine," Yuri assured her, even though he could already feel the bite of the wind through his thin sweater. "My bus is coming soon anyway. Please take it." She looked at him for a long moment, as if trying to figure out if he had some ulterior motive, but whatever she saw in his face must have reassured her because she finally reached out and took the jacket. Her fingers were ice cold when they brushed against his. "Thank you," she whispered, pulling it on immediately. It was too big for her, swallowing her smaller frame, but she wrapped it around herself gratefully. "You have no idea what this means." "Stay warm," Yuri said simply, and turned to go back to Bella. "Wait," the woman called after him. "What is your name?" He glanced back over his shoulder. Yuri Patterson." "Thank you, Yuri," she said, and there was something in her voice that made it sound like a promise. Bella looked up at him with curious eyes when he returned to her side. "Why did you give that lady your jacket, Daddy?" "Because she needed it more than I do," he explained, taking her hand again as they resumed their walk to the bus stop. "It is important to help people when we can, remember? Even when we do not have much," Bella asked, her voice small. Yuri squeezed her hand. Especially then, sweetheart, having a good heart does not cost anything. The bus ride home was cold, and Yuri spent it with his arms wrapped around Bella, trying to keep her warm while he shivered in just his sweater. They lived in a small apartment in Dorchester, a 40-minute ride from downtown, and by the time they climbed the 3 flights of stairs to their door, Yuri's teeth were chattering. But he made good on his promise. While Bella changed into her pajamas, he heated milk on the stove and stirred in cocoa powder and a little bit of sugar, the good kind of hot chocolate that his own mother used to make for him when he was young. They sat together on their second-hand couch, Bella tucked under his arm, watching cartoons until she fell asleep against his chest. Yuri carried her to her bedroom, tucking her in carefully and pressing a kiss to her forehead. Then he stood in the doorway for a moment, looking at his daughter sleeping peacefully, and felt that familiar mix of love and fear that had become constant in his life. He was 32 years old, working a job that barely paid enough to cover rent and groceries, and he had no idea how he was going to afford Christmas presents this year. But Bella was healthy and happy and safe, and that was what mattered. He did not think much about the woman with the jacket after that night. He had too many other things to worry about. The restaurant where he worked had been threatening to cut hours because business was slow, and he had started looking for a second job to make up the difference. Bella's school had sent home a notice about an upcoming field trip that cost $20 per student, which might as well have been $200 for how much extra money he had lying around. Life moved forward in its relentless way, and the moment of kindness on a cold November night faded into just another memory. 3 weeks later, Yuri was in the middle of his lunch shift, his hands moving automatically as he prepped vegetables for the evening service, when his manager, Tony, appeared beside him with a strange look on his face. "Yuri, there is someone here to see you," Tony said, sounding bewildered. Yuri's first thought was that something had happened to Bella. His heart lurched with panic as he pulled off his apron. "Is it the school? Is Bella okay?" No, nothing like that," Tony assured him quickly. "It is a woman. Says she needs to talk to you. She is waiting in the front." Confused and relieved in equal measure, Yuri washed his hands and headed out to the dining room. The restaurant was in the lull between lunch and dinner, with only a few tables occupied, but the woman standing near the hostess stand immediately drew every eye in the room. She was dressed impeccably in a cream-colored pantsuit that probably cost more than Yuri made in a month, her honey-colored hair styled in soft waves that framed her face. It took him a moment to recognize her. "You," he said, stopping short. "You are the woman from the bench." She turned to face him with a warm smile. "Hello, Yuri. I am Helena Ortiz, and I have been looking for you." Yuri blinked, utterly confused. "Looking for me? Why?" Helena reached into her elegant handbag and pulled out his jacket, which had been cleaned and looked better than it had in months. "I wanted to return this and thank you properly. What you did that night, it meant more to me than you can possibly know." He took the jacket automatically, still trying to process why this obviously wealthy woman would go to the trouble of tracking him down. "You really did not need to go through the trouble. I am just glad you were okay. What happened, if you do not mind me asking? You seemed pretty upset that night." A shadow crossed Helena's face, and for a moment, the polished exterior cracked to reveal genuine pain underneath. "I had just come from a very difficult meeting. I learned that someone I trusted had betrayed me in a significant way, and I needed to clear my head. I was walking, not paying attention to where I was going or what I was wearing, and by the time I realized how far I had wandered and how cold it had gotten, I was completely lost, and my phone was dead." She paused, looking at him with those hazel eyes that seemed to see right through him. "And then you appeared, this kind stranger who gave me his jacket without asking for anything in return. You have no idea how rare that is in my world." "Anyone would have done the same," Yuri said, feeling awkward under her intense gaze. "No," Helena said softly. "They really would not have. Most people would have walked right past me, especially once they saw how I was dressed. They would have assumed I could take care of myself, but you saw someone who needed help, and you helped, even though it was clear you could not afford to lose your jacket. She took a deep breath. I did some research, Yuri. I know you are a single father working long hours to support your daughter. I know you struggle to make ends meet, and I want to repay your kindness. Yuri felt his spine stiffen. He had his pride, and the last thing he wanted was charity from some wealthy woman who felt sorry for him. That is not necessary. I did not help you because I wanted something in return. I know, Helena said gently. That is exactly why I want to help you. Please just hear me out. I own a company called Ortiz Hospitality. We operate hotels and restaurants across the country. I am always looking for talented people, and I would like to offer you a position as a sous chef at one of our flagship restaurants here in Boston. The pay would be significantly better than what you are making now, and the hours would be more reasonable. You would have health insurance, paid time off, all the benefits you deserve. Yuri stared at her, certain he must have misheard. You want to give me a job, just like that? I have done my homework, Helena said, and there was a hint of steel beneath her pleasant tone that suggested she was not someone accustomed to having her offers refused. I spoke to your manager here. He says you are one of the hardest workers he has ever seen, that you never complain, and you are always willing to take on extra shifts. I also had my executive chef come in undercover last week to try the special you created. He was very impressed. You have talent, Yuri, and you are wasting it in a place that does not appreciate you. I appreciate him just fine, Tony interjected, having appeared from the kitchen. But even as he said it, Yuri could see the resignation in his boss's eyes. Tony knew he could not match whatever Helena was offering. Yuri's mind was racing. A better job, better pay, better hours. It would mean more time with Bella, less stress, maybe even the ability to save some money for her future. It sounded too good to be true, which meant it probably was. Why are you really doing this? He asked bluntly. Is this some kind of rich person guilt thing? Because if it is, I do not need your pity. Instead of being offended, Helena actually laughed. I like that you are direct. No, this is not guilt or pity. This is good business. I need talented people in my organization, and you clearly have ability and work ethic. But I would be lying if I said your kindness that night did not play a part in this. You helped me when you had no reason to, when it actually cost you something to do so. That kind of character is rare, and it is valuable. She pulled a business card from her bag and held it out to him. Take a few days to think about it. The offer stands whenever you are ready. Yuri took the card, his calloused fingers brushing against her smooth ones. The simple touch sent an unexpected jolt through him, and from the way Helena's eyes widened slightly, he thought maybe she felt it too. He cleared his throat, suddenly flustered. I will think about it, he promised. Good, Helena said, smiling at him in a way that made his heart do something complicated in his chest. I hope to hear from you soon, Yuri Patterson. She left in a whisper of expensive perfume, and Yuri stood there holding her business card, feeling like a tornado had just blown through his life. That evening, after he picked Bella up from the after-school program, and they were eating dinner together at their small kitchen table, Yuri found himself studying his daughter's face and trying to figure out what to do. The smart thing would be to accept Helena's offer. It was a better opportunity than he had any right to expect, and turning it down because of pride would be stupid. But there was something about the whole situation that made him uneasy. Helena Ortiz was beautiful, wealthy, and clearly way out of his league. He was a single dad living paycheck to paycheck in a tiny apartment. What if this was all some kind of misunderstanding? What if he took the job and it turned out to be a disaster? Daddy, you are being quiet, Bella observed, looking at him with concern. Are you okay? Yuri forced himself to smile. I am fine, sweetheart, just thinking about some things. Hey, remember that lady I gave my jacket to a few weeks ago? Bella nodded, her eyes bright with curiosity. The cold lady. Yeah, the cold lady. Well, she came to see me today at work. She wanted to say thank you and return my jacket. That was nice of her, Bella said. Then, with the perception that 7-year-olds sometimes have, she added, was she pretty? Yuri felt his face heat up. That is not really relevant, Belle, his daughter giggled. She was pretty. Daddy has a crush. I do not have a crush, Yuri protested, even as he felt his ears burning. I do not even know her. She just offered me a job, that is all. A new job? Bella's expression became more serious. Would you still be able to pick me up from school? Actually, I would probably be able to pick you up more often, Yuri said, reaching across the table to take her hand. It would be better hours and better pay. We would have more time together. Then you should take it, Bella said decisively. You are always tired, Daddy. I do not like when you are tired. The simple honesty of her statement hit him harder than any argument could have. She was right. He was exhausted all the time, running on coffee and determination, and while he tried to hide it from her, of course she noticed. Kids always noticed. Okay, he said softly. I will call her tomorrow. He called Helena the next morning during his break at work, his hands slightly sweaty as he dialed the number on her business card. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and professional. Helena Ortiz. Hi, it is Yuri Patterson. We spoke yesterday about the job offer. Yuri, the warmth in her voice increased noticeably. I am so glad you called. Have you made a decision? I would like to accept if the offer still stands, he said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. But I have a few conditions. Go on. I need to be able to work reasonable hours so I can be there for my daughter. She is my first priority always, and I do not want any special treatment because of what happened the night we met. If I take this job, I want it to be because I am good enough, not because you feel obligated. There was a pause, and then Helena said, I can absolutely work with those conditions. In fact, I respect them. How about you come to the restaurant tomorrow morning at 10? I will introduce you to the head chef and show you around. We can discuss the specifics then. That works, Yuri agreed, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. Thank you, Helena. I really appreciate this opportunity. No need to thank me, she said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. You earned it. I will see you tomorrow. The restaurant was called Luminescence, and it was located in the heart of downtown Boston, occupying the ground floor of a gleaming high-rise building. Yuri arrived 15 minutes early, dressed in the only button-down shirt he owned that did not have any stains, and stood outside for a moment, gathering his courage. Through the windows, he could see the elegant interior, all clean lines and soft lighting, so different from the cramped kitchen he was used to. Helena was waiting for him in the lobby, and she smiled when she saw him approach. She was dressed in a charcoal gray dress that was somehow both professional and stunning, her hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. Yuri felt very aware of how out of place he looked, but if Helena noticed, she gave no sign. Right on time, she said approvingly. Come on, I will give you the grand tour. She led him through the restaurant, pointing out various features and explaining the concept behind Luminescence. It was clear she was passionate about her work, her eyes lighting up as she talked about locally sourced ingredients and creating a dining experience that was both sophisticated and welcoming. We are not trying to be pretentious, she explained as they walked through the dining room. I hate restaurants where you feel like you are not good enough just for walking through the door. I want people to feel special here, but also comfortable. Does that make sense? It does, Yuri said, and he meant it. He found himself genuinely impressed by her vision and the obvious care she had put into every detail. The kitchen was state-of-the-art, with equipment Yuri had only ever seen in magazines. The head chef, a gruff but friendly man named Marcus who looked to be in his 50s, gave Yuri a thorough once-over before nodding in approval. Helena speaks highly of you, Marcus said. Says you have raw talent. I will be the judge of that, but I am willing to give you a shot. Can you start Monday? Yuri glanced at Helena, who nodded encouragingly. I can start Monday. Good, be here at 8 in the morning. We will get you set up with uniforms and go over the menu. It will be intense, but I think you can handle it. After the tour, Helena took Yuri to her office on the top floor of the building. It was a corner office with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city. She gestured for him to sit in one of the comfortable chairs across from her desk, and then sat down beside him rather than behind the desk, as if she wanted to minimize the power dynamic between them. "I know this is all a lot to take in," she said. "But I really do think you are going to thrive here. Marcus can be tough, but he is an excellent teacher, and he does not suffer fools. The fact that he is willing to work with you is a good sign." "I still cannot quite believe this is happening," Yuri admitted. "A month ago, I was worried about making rent, and now I am sitting in a corner office with a millionaire offering me a dream job. It feels surreal." Helena laughed softly. "I know the feeling. Sometimes I still cannot believe where I ended up. I grew up without much money, you know. My parents were immigrants from Mexico, and they worked multiple jobs just to keep us afloat. I put myself through business school waiting tables and cleaning offices. Everything I have, I built from nothing." Yuri looked at her with new respect. "I did not realize that. The way you carry yourself, I assumed you had always been wealthy." "I will take that as a compliment," Helena said with a smile. "But no, this is all relatively recent, the last 10 years or so. I started with one small restaurant and grew from there. I have been very fortunate, but I also worked my tail off for it." "That makes me feel a little better about accepting your help," Yuri confessed. "I was worried you would not understand what it is like to struggle, that this was just some rich person throwing money at a problem to make themselves feel better." "I understand more than you might think," Helena said quietly. "And for what it is worth, I am not in the habit of throwing money at problems. I am very careful about who I invest in, both professionally and personally. You impressed me, Yuri, not just with your kindness, but with your character. In my experience, that matters more than any amount of skill or talent." They talked for a while longer, going over the specifics of his new position, the salary that was nearly double what he had been making, the health insurance that would kick in after 90 days. By the time Yuri left the building, his head was spinning with possibilities. He could afford to move to a better apartment, maybe even a place with a small yard where Bella could play. He could buy her new clothes instead of relying on thrift stores and hand-me-downs. He could start saving for her college fund. More than that, though, he found himself thinking about Helena, about the warmth in her smile and the passion in her voice when she talked about her work. He tried to tell himself that any attraction he felt was just gratitude mixed with his natural response to a beautiful woman, but he knew it was more than that. There was something about her that drew him in, a combination of strength and vulnerability that he found captivating. But he also knew that nothing could come of it. She was his boss now, and more importantly, she was completely out of his league. The smart thing to do would be to focus on his job, prove himself, and forget about any ridiculous fantasies his brain wanted to spin. That resolution lasted exactly until the following Monday when Yuri started his first day at Luminescence, and Helena stopped by the kitchen mid-morning to see how he was settling in. She was dressed casually in jeans and a soft sweater, her hair down around her shoulders, and she looked so different from the polished businesswoman he had met with that it took him a moment to find his voice. "How is it going?" she asked, leaning against one of the counters with a friendly smile. "It is going well," Yuri said, very aware that Marcus and the other kitchen staff were watching their interaction with interest. "Marcus is a good teacher." "Glad to hear it." Helena glanced around the kitchen, and something in her expression softened. "I love it here, you know." "The restaurant was the first one I opened, my baby. Sometimes I miss working in the kitchen instead of sitting in an office all day." "You can cook?" Yuri asked, surprised. "I started out as a line cook, just like you," Helena said with a laugh. "Worked my way up to sous chef before I decided to open my own place. These days, I am too busy with the business side of things to actually cook, but I still come down here when I need to remember why I do this." She met his eyes, and there was something vulnerable in her gaze. It is easy to lose sight of what matters when you are caught up in meetings and budgets and expansion plans. Being in the kitchen grounds me. Yuri found himself smiling. I can understand that. There is something meditative about cooking, the way everything else falls away, and it is just you and the food and the people you are feeding. Exactly, Helena said, her face lighting up with pleasure at being understood. Most people do not get that. They stood there for a moment, just looking at each other, and Yuri felt that spark of connection again, stronger this time. Then Marcus cleared his throat pointedly, and the moment was broken. Sorry to interrupt the bonding session, but we have prep work to finish, Marcus said dryly. Helena laughed, pushing off from the counter. Right, I will let you all get back to work. Yuri, if you need anything, my door is always open. Thank you, Yuri said, and watched her leave, very conscious of how his heart was beating faster than it should. The weeks passed quickly after that, falling into a new rhythm that Yuri had not realized he was craving. He worked at Luminescence 5 days a week, 8-hour shifts that were intense but manageable. And for the first time in years, he had actual time off. He picked Bella up from school most days, and they had real evenings together, doing homework and cooking dinner and just being a family. The paychecks were steady and generous, and slowly, the constant knot of financial anxiety in his gut began to ease. But the best part, though he tried not to admit it even to himself, was seeing Helena. She stopped by the kitchen often, always with some excuse about checking on the menu or talking to Marcus. But Yuri noticed that she seemed to linger near his station, asking him questions about what he was working on or sharing stories about her day. They fell into an easy banter, teasing and joking in a way that felt natural, and Yuri found himself looking forward to her visits more than was probably appropriate. He told himself it was harmless, that they were just becoming friends, but he knew he was lying. He was falling for her, slowly but surely, drawn in by her intelligence and her passion and the way she looked at him like he mattered, like he was more than just another employee. It was dangerous and stupid and completely inevitable. It was Marcus who finally called him out on it. You know she is into you, right? Marcus said one evening as they were cleaning up after the dinner service. Yuri nearly dropped the pan he was washing. What? No, she is not. We are just friendly. Marcus snorted. Kid, I have been working for Helena for 8 years, and I have never seen her light up the way she does when you are around. She is into you. The question is, what are you going to do about it? Nothing, Yuri said firmly. She is my boss, and she is way out of my league. The smart thing to do is keep things professional. The smart thing is not always the right thing, Marcus pointed out, and for what it is worth, I do not think she would care about the boss thing. Helena does not play by normal rules. Yuri shook his head. It does not matter anyway. Even if she was interested, which I doubt, I have Bella to think about. I cannot just start dating someone, especially not someone like Helena. My daughter has to come first. Has Bella met Helena yet? Marcus asked. No, and she is not going to. I am keeping my work life and my personal life separate. But the universe, it seemed, had other plans. The following week, Bella's school called Yuri in the middle of his shift. She was sick, running a fever, and needed to be picked up immediately. Yuri's regular babysitter was out of town, and there was no one else he could call. He found Helena in her office, pacing while on a conference call. She took one look at his face and immediately told whoever she was talking to that she would call them back. What is wrong? She asked, concern evident in her voice. Bella is sick at school. I need to leave to pick her up, but we are in the middle of lunch service and I do not know. Go, Helena said immediately. Your daughter needs you. We will figure out the restaurant. Thank you, Yuri said gratefully. I am sorry for leaving you in the lurch. Do not be ridiculous. Family comes first always. Do you need anything? A ride to the school? No, I can take the bus. The bus will take forever, Helena said, already grabbing her purse and car keys. Come on, I will drive you. It will be faster. You do not have to do that, Yuri protested, even as he followed her toward the elevator. I want to, Helena said firmly. Besides, I have been cooped up in that office all day. I could use the fresh air." Her car was a sleek black sedan that probably cost more than Yuri had made in the past 5 years. But Helena drove it with casual ease, weaving through traffic with the confidence of someone who knew the city well. Yuri gave her directions to Bella's school, his mind already racing ahead to what he would need to do. Take her temperature, make her comfortable, maybe stop at the pharmacy for children's medicine if her fever was too high. "You are a good father," Helena said quietly, glancing over at him. "The way you dropped everything the second your daughter needed you, no hesitation, it is admirable." "She is my whole world," Yuri said simply. "Everything I do is for her." "What happened with her mother, if you do not mind me asking? You do not have to answer if it is too personal." Yuri was silent for a moment, weighing how much to share. But there was something about Helena that made him want to be honest, to let her see the messy reality of his life. "Her name was Nicole," he said finally. "We met when we were young, too young really. Got pregnant when we were 23, and we tried to make it work, but we were just not compatible. She wanted things I could not give her, a certain lifestyle, financial security. When Bella was 4, Nicole sat me down and told me she was leaving. She had met someone else, someone with money and prospects. She said she still loved Bella, but she needed more out of life than I could provide." "That must have been devastating," Helena said softly. "It was," Yuri admitted. "Not because I was heartbroken over Nicole. Honestly, our relationship had been dying for a while, but because of Bella. Nicole sends money for child support, and she sees Bella a few times a year, but she was never really cut out to be a mother. It kills me that my daughter has to grow up knowing her mom chose a different life over her." "I am sorry," Helena said, and the genuine sympathy in her voice made Yuri's throat tighten. "But for what it is worth, Bella is lucky to have you. A lot of fathers would not step up the way you have." "I do not see it as stepping up," Yuri said. "I see it as doing what I am supposed to do. She is my daughter. Of course I am going to take care of her." They arrived at the school, and Yuri hurried inside to the nurse's office. Bella was lying on the small cot there, looking small and miserable, her face flushed with fever. When she saw him, she immediately started crying. "Daddy," she whimpered, reaching for him. Yuri's heart broke a little as he gathered her into his arms. "I am here, sweetheart. I am going to take you home and make you feel better, okay?" The nurse confirmed that Bella had a fever of 101 degrees and recommended rest and fluids. Yuri thanked her and carried his daughter out to the parking lot, where Helena was waiting by her car. When Bella saw the strange woman, she pressed her face into Yuri's shoulder shyly. "Bella, this is my friend Helena," Yuri said gently. "She gave us a ride here. Can you say hello?" Bella peeked out at Helena with curious eyes. "Hello," she said in a small voice. "Hello, Bella," Helena said warmly, her whole face softening. "I am sorry you are not feeling well. Your dad is going to take good care of you, though." They drove to Yuri's apartment, and when Helena pulled up outside the building, she surprised him by turning off the engine. "Let me help you get her upstairs," she said. "You really do not have to," Yuri began, but Helena was already getting out of the car. "I know I do not have to. I want to." Yuri was too tired and worried to argue. He carried Bella up the 3 flights of stairs, acutely aware of how shabby the building must look to Helena, with its peeling paint and flickering hallway lights. His apartment was clean but sparse, the furniture all secondhand, toys neatly organized in plastic bins along one wall. If Helena was bothered by any of it, she gave no sign. Instead, she watched as Yuri settled Bella on the couch with a blanket and checked her temperature again. "I am going to go to the pharmacy and get her some medicine," Yuri said. "There is one a few blocks away." "I will go," Helena offered immediately. "You stay with her, just tell me what you need." "I cannot ask you to do that." "You are not asking, I am offering." Helena pulled out her phone, ready to take notes. "What does she need?" Yuri rattled off a list of children's fever reducer, cough medicine, and some juice boxes, and Helena nodded efficiently. "I will be back in 15 minutes," she promised. She was back in 12, carrying bags from the pharmacy and, Yuri noticed with surprise, the grocery store as well. She unpacked children's medicine, juice boxes, crackers, soup, and even a stuffed animal, a soft purple elephant that she handed to Bella with a shy smile. "I thought you might like a friend to keep you company while you are sick," Helena said. Bella took the elephant, hugging it close. "Thank you," she whispered. "He is soft. I am glad you like him." Helena looked up at Yuri, and there was something vulnerable in her expression, like she was worried she had overstepped. Yuri felt his heart do that complicated thing again, warmth spreading through his chest. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For all of this, you did not have to do any of it." "I know," Helena said simply, "but I wanted to." They got Bella dosed with medicine, and the little girl promptly fell asleep on the couch, clutching her new elephant. Helena helped Yuri make soup, moving around his tiny kitchen with surprising ease, and they fell into a comfortable rhythm, working side by side. "You are good at this," Yuri observed as Helena expertly chopped vegetables. "I told you, I started out as a line cook. Old habits die hard." She glanced over at him with a smile. "Besides, cooking is calming. It is nice to do something with my hands instead of staring at spreadsheets all day." They ate soup together at Yuri's small kitchen table, talking in low voices so as not to wake Bella. Helena asked about his daughter, and Yuri found himself opening up in a way he rarely did, sharing stories about Bella's quirks and accomplishments, the pride clear in his voice. "She sounds amazing," Helena said, her eyes warm. "She is," Yuri agreed. "She is the best thing I have ever done." Helena looked like she wanted to say something, but then she glanced at her watch and sighed. "I should probably get going. I have a conference call in an hour that I cannot miss." "Of course. Thank you again for everything today. You went above and beyond." They stood by the door, neither quite ready to end the moment. Helena reached out and touched his arm gently. "If you need anything else, call me. I mean it, Yuri, day or night." "I will," he promised, even though he knew he probably would not. He was not used to having someone he could rely on, and the thought of leaning on Helena felt too intimate, too dangerous. After she left, Yuri sat beside Bella on the couch, gently stroking her hair while she slept. His daughter stirred, opening her eyes slightly. "I like Helena," Bella murmured sleepily. "She is nice and pretty." "She is both of those things," Yuri agreed softly. "You should marry her," Bella said with the complete certainty of a 7-year-old, and then fell back asleep before Yuri could respond. He sat there in the growing darkness, holding his daughter and thinking about Helena Ortiz, and admitted to himself that he was in deep trouble. Over the next few weeks, something shifted between Yuri and Helena. The pretense of keeping things strictly professional had eroded, worn away by late-night texts when Helena wanted advice on a menu change, by the way she started inviting him to her office to brainstorm ideas, by the lingering looks and accidental touches that happened more and more frequently. Bella recovered from her illness quickly, but she remembered Helena and asked about her often. Yuri tried to downplay it, to maintain some kind of boundary, but his daughter was persistent. "When can we see Helena again?" Bella asked one evening as they were having dinner. "She is very busy, sweetheart. She runs a whole company." "But she likes us," Bella insisted with childlike logic. "I could tell. Maybe we could invite her over for dinner. You could make that pasta you are really good at." The idea lodged itself in Yuri's brain and would not let go. What would it hurt to invite Helena to dinner? They were friends, after all. It was a perfectly reasonable thing for friends to do. He texted her the next day, his thumb hovering over the send button for a full minute before he finally committed. "Bella wants to know if you would like to come to dinner sometime. No pressure, I know you are busy." Helena's response came back within seconds. "I would love to." When? They settled on Saturday evening, which gave Yuri several days to overthink every aspect of the plan. He cleaned the apartment until it sparkled, borrowed a nicer tablecloth from his neighbor, and spent way too long planning the menu. He settled on homemade fettuccine with a cream sauce, garlic bread, and a salad, finishing it off with a simple tiramisu for dessert. Bella was excited all week, asking a dozen times if Saturday was here yet, and insisting on wearing her favorite dress when the day finally arrived. She helped Yuri set the table, arranging the silverware with intense concentration. Helena arrived at 7, and Yuri's breath caught when he opened the door. She was wearing a simple dress in a deep blue color that brought out the hazel in her eyes, her hair falling loose around her shoulders. She looked beautiful and approachable at the same time, and Yuri had to resist the urge to stare. "Hi," he said, his voice coming out slightly rough. "Hi," Helena replied, smiling at him in a way that made his heart race. She held up a bottle of wine and a wrapped present. "I brought wine for you and something for Bella. You did not have to bring anything." "I wanted to." Bella came running to the door, bouncing with excitement. "Helena, you came." "Of course I came," Helena said, kneeling down to Bella's level. "I would not miss it. I brought you something." She handed Bella the present, and the little girl tore into it with enthusiasm, revealing a beautiful hardcover book of fairy tales, the kind with gorgeous illustrations. "Thank you," Bella squealed, hugging the book to her chest. "It is so pretty. I am glad you like it. Your dad told me you love to read." Dinner was easy and relaxed, filled with laughter and good food. Helena complimented Yuri's cooking extravagantly, and Bella chattered away, telling Helena about school and her friends and the field trip to the aquarium they had taken last month. Yuri watched the two of them interact, Helena giving Bella her full attention, asking questions and listening to the answers with genuine interest, and felt something warm and terrifying settle in his chest. This was what he wanted, he realized. Not just Helena, but this. A family. Someone to share meals and laughter with, someone who looked at his daughter with affection and made the apartment feel less empty. After dinner, Bella insisted on showing Helena her room and all her favorite toys. Yuri cleaned up the kitchen, giving them space, and when Helena came back out, she was smiling. "She is absolutely wonderful," Helena said, leaning against the counter beside him. "You should be so proud of her." "I am," Yuri said. "Every single day." They were standing close, and Yuri was suddenly very aware of the warmth of her body, the faint scent of her perfume. He cleared his throat, trying to dispel the tension. "Thank you for coming tonight. It means a lot to both of us." "Thank you for inviting me," Helena said softly. "I cannot remember the last time I had such a nice evening. My life is usually all work and business dinners and trying to keep up appearances. This felt real." Yuri turned to look at her, studying her face. "Is that hard, keeping up appearances?" "You have no idea," Helena admitted. "I have worked so hard to build this company, to prove myself in an industry that did not want to take me seriously. I am constantly being judged, constantly having to be perfect. Sometimes I forget what it is like to just be myself." She met his eyes. "But when I am with you, I do not have to pretend. You see me as just Helena, not as the CEO or the millionaire or whatever other label people want to put on me. Do you have any idea how rare that is?" "I think I am starting to," Yuri said quietly. The moment stretched between them, charged with possibility. Helena's gaze dropped to his lips and Yuri felt his breath catch. He wanted to kiss her so badly it was like a physical ache, but he was also terrified. What if he was reading this wrong? What if he ruined everything? The decision was taken out of his hands when Helena rose up on her toes and pressed her lips to his, soft and tentative. For a heartbeat, Yuri was too shocked to respond, and then he was kissing her back, his hands coming up to cup her face, his whole world narrowing down to the feel of her mouth against his and the way she sighed into the kiss. When they finally pulled apart, both slightly breathless, Helena looked up at him with wonder in her eyes. "I have been wanting to do that for weeks," she confessed. "Me too," Yuri admitted, "but I was terrified I was imagining things that you could not possibly be interested in someone like me." "Someone like you," Helena repeated, a hint of steel entering her voice. "Yuri, you are kind and hardworking and an amazing father. You are talented and funny, and you make me feel like I can be myself. Why would I not be interested in you? Because I am broke, Yuri said bluntly. Because I live in a tiny apartment with hand-me-down furniture, and I cannot afford to take you to fancy restaurants or buy you expensive things. Because we are from completely different worlds. I do not care about any of that, Helena said fiercely. I have money. What I do not have is someone who looks at me the way you do, like I matter for more than my bank account or my connections. I do not have someone who makes me laugh or challenges me or makes me want to be better. I do not have someone who makes me feel safe. Her voice softened. I like you, Yuri. So much, and I think you like me too. So why are we fighting this? Yuri looked at her, at the vulnerability and hope in her face, and felt his resistance crumbling. She was right. He did like her. More than that, he was falling for her, hard and fast, and maybe it was crazy and complicated, but it also felt inevitable. I do like you, he said. More than I probably should, but I need you to understand something. Bella comes first. Always. I cannot have someone in my life who is not willing to be part of her life too. And if this thing between us goes wrong, if it ends badly, it will be awkward because you are my boss, and I cannot afford to lose this job. I understand about Bella, Helena said seriously. And I would never ask you to choose between your daughter and anything else. As for the job thing, I promise you, no matter what happens between us personally, your position at Luminescence is secure. You are an incredible chef, and you have earned your place there. That will not change. Okay then, Yuri said, making the decision. Let us do this. Let us see where it goes. Helena's face lit up with a smile that could have powered the whole city. Really, really. She kissed him again. And this time there was nothing tentative about it. Just joy and promise and the beginning of something that felt like it might be extraordinary. They started dating, though it took some time to figure out what that meant given their complicated circumstances. Helena was busy with her company, and Yuri had Bella to think about, but they found pockets of time to steal together. Coffee dates before Yuri's shift started. Late-night phone calls after Bella was asleep. Stolen kisses in Helena's office when no one was around. Bella, predictably, was thrilled. When Yuri sat her down to explain that he and Helena were dating, his daughter had simply nodded and said, I know, Daddy. I told you that you should marry her. We are not getting married, Belle. We just started dating. But you will, Bella said with absolute certainty. You are happy when you are with her. You smile more. Out of the mouths of babes, the first time they told anyone else about their relationship was about a month in, when Marcus cornered Yuri in the kitchen and asked point-blank if he and Helena were together. Yes, Yuri admitted. Is that going to be a problem? Marcus grinned. Kid, I have been waiting for you two to get your act together since day one. About damn time. The other kitchen staff were similarly supportive, teasing Yuri good-naturedly but clearly happy for both of them. It helped that Yuri continued to work, just as hard as he always had, never asking for special treatment or acting like his relationship with the boss gave him any kind of advantage, but there were challenges too. Helena's world was complicated in ways Yuri had not fully understood. There were business associates who looked down on him, making it clear they thought he was just some gold digger after her money. There were social events where Yuri felt hopelessly out of place, surrounded by wealthy people who spoke a language he did not understand. The worst was a charity gala about 2 months into their relationship. Helena had asked Yuri to be her date, and he had reluctantly agreed, buying a second-hand tuxedo that did not quite fit right and feeling like an imposter the moment they walked into the hotel ballroom. Everyone there seemed to know Helena, and they all wanted a piece of her time. Yuri stood awkwardly at her side, nursing a glass of champagne and trying not to feel like he was completely out of his depth. He could tell Helena was trying to include him in the conversations, but the discussions of investments and business strategies and real estate markets might as well have been in a foreign language. At one point, a man in an expensive suit looked Yuri up and down with barely concealed disdain and asked, "So, what do you do?" "I am a sous chef at Luminescence," Yuri said evenly. "Oh, The man's tone made it clear exactly what he thought of that. How interesting. And how did you and Helena meet? Before Yuri could answer, Helena stepped in, her voice cool. Yuri did me a great kindness when I needed it, and I was smart enough to recognize quality when I saw it. Now, if you will excuse us, I see someone I need to speak with. She steered Yuri away, her hand tight on his arm. I am sorry about him. Robert is an ass. It is fine, Yuri said, even though it was not. They made it through the rest of the evening, but the damage was done. On the drive back to Yuri's apartment, he was quiet, staring out the window and trying to process what he was feeling. Talk to me, Helena said softly. I can tell something is bothering you. It is stupid, Yuri began, but she cut him off. If it is bothering you, it is not stupid. Please, Yuri, talk to me. He took a deep breath. I do not fit in your world, Helena. I am standing there in a borrowed tuxedo while everyone around me is dripping in designer labels and old money. They look at me like I am dirt on the bottom of their shoes, and honestly, I do not blame them. What am I compared to the people you normally associate with? I am just a line cook who got lucky. Helena pulled the car over to the side of the road, putting it in park and turning to face him. You listen to me, Yuri Patterson. You are not just a line cook who got lucky. You are talented and kind and genuine, and you are worth 10 of those people at that gala. I do not care about designer labels or pedigrees or any of that superficial nonsense. I care about character, and you have more character in your little finger than most of those people have in their entire bodies. But it is always going to be like this, Yuri said. I am always going to be the outsider in your world. I am always going to feel like I do not belong. Then we will create our own world, Helena said fiercely. One where the only thing that matters is how we feel about each other. I do not care what anyone else thinks, Yuri. I care about you. I care about the life we are building together. And what about Bella? Yuri asked quietly. What happens when she gets older and starts to notice the disparity between our lives? What happens when she goes to your house and sees how you live compared to how we live? Then we will teach her that money is not what defines a person, Helena said. We will teach her that kindness and integrity are worth more than any bank account. And honestly, Yuri, if you want my help to move to a nicer place or to make things easier financially, all you have to do is ask. I have more money than I know what to do with, and I would be happy to share it with you. I do not want your money, Yuri said, more sharply than he intended. I want to provide for my daughter myself. I have pride, Helena. I know you do, and I respect that. But there is a difference between being proud and being stubborn to the point of hurting yourself. Let me help, Yuri, not because you need me to, but because we are partners and that is what partners do. They talked for a long time that night, parked on the side of the road, hashing out fears and insecurities and trying to figure out how to make this work. It was not easy, and there were moments when Yuri seriously considered walking away, convinced that the differences between them were too great to overcome. But then he thought about the way Helena laughed at his jokes, the way she was with Bella, the way she kissed him like he was the most important person in the world. He thought about how much happier he had been these past few months, how much lighter life felt with her in it. In the end, he chose love. It was terrifying and complicated, but it was also the easiest decision he had ever made. The months went by, and their relationship deepened. Helena started spending more time at Yuri's apartment, and slowly, her things began to accumulate there. A toothbrush in the bathroom, a change of clothes in the closet, books on the coffee table. It felt domestic and right, and Bella loved having Helena around. For her part, Helena seemed to blossom in the relative normalcy of Yuri's life. She came to Bella's school events, cheering loudly at the winter concert. She helped with homework and learned how to braid Bella's hair. She and Yuri cooked dinner together on the nights she did not have to work late, moving around the tiny kitchen with practiced ease. 6 months into their relationship, Helena invited Yuri and Bella to spend the weekend at her house for the first time. Yuri had known intellectually that she was wealthy, but he was not prepared for the reality of her home. It was a beautiful townhouse in Beacon Hill. 3 stories of elegantly restored historical architecture with high ceilings and original hardwood floors, and more square footage than Yuri's entire apartment building. Bella was wide-eyed as Helena showed them around, exclaiming over the backyard garden and the library full of books and the guest room that would be theirs for the weekend. "It is so big," Bella breathed. "Helena, you live here all by yourself." "I do," Helena said, and there was something wistful in her voice. "It is a lovely house, but it can feel very empty sometimes." That night, after Bella was asleep in the guest room, Yuri and Helena sat together in her living room, cuddled up on her very comfortable couch with glasses of wine. "Thank you for inviting us," Yuri said. "Bella is having the time of her life." "I am glad," Helena said, leaning her head on his shoulder. "I have been wanting to have you both here for a while now. I wanted you to see where I live, to be part of all aspects of my life." "It is a beautiful home," Yuri said honestly, "but I can see what you mean about it feeling empty. It is a lot of space for one person." Helena was quiet for a moment, and when she spoke, her voice was soft and a little uncertain. "It does not have to be, though. Empty, I mean." Yuri's heart started beating faster. "Helena, I am not proposing or anything," she said quickly. "I know it is too soon for that, but I have been thinking a lot about the future, about what I want, and what I want is this. You and me and Bella, I want us to be a family, Yuri. I want to come home to people I love instead of an empty house. I want to help with homework and pack school lunches and argue about bedtimes. I want all the messy, complicated, wonderful parts of building a life together." Yuri pulled back slightly so he could look at her face. "You really mean that? I have never been more serious about anything in my life," Helena said. "I love you, Yuri. I love Bella, and I want to be with you both, not just for now, but for the long haul, if you will have me." "I love you too," Yuri said, the words feeling both terrifying and perfect. "I have for a while now. I just was not sure if you felt the same way." "I do," Helena assured him. "So much it scares me sometimes. I have never felt this way about anyone before." They kissed, slow and sweet, sealing the promise between them. They were not ready to move in together yet, not ready to take that step while everything was still so new. But the intention was there, the understanding that this was going somewhere permanent. The holiday season arrived, and it was the first time in years that Yuri actually looked forward to Christmas. Usually, it was a source of stress, trying to figure out how to afford presents for Bella and make the holiday feel special on his limited budget. But this year was different. Helena insisted on hosting Christmas Eve dinner at her house, inviting Yuri and Bella along with Marcus and a few other people from the restaurant who did not have family nearby. She went all out, decorating the townhouse beautifully and preparing an elaborate meal that had everyone groaning with pleasure. But the best moment came after dinner when Helena pulled out presents for everyone. For Bella, she had bought a whole series of books the girl had been wanting, along with art supplies and a new winter coat that fit perfectly. For Yuri, there was a professional set of chef's knives, the kind he had always wanted but could never justify buying. "Helena, this is too much," Yuri protested, even as his fingers itched to test the knives. "It is not too much," Helena said firmly. "You deserve nice tools for your craft, and before you argue, just remember that I am very stubborn and I will not take them back." Yuri had presents for her too, though they were far more modest. He had made her a photo album, filling it with pictures from the past several months. Helena and Bella baking cookies, Helena laughing at something Marcus said in the kitchen, candid shots of her looking relaxed and happy in ways she never did in her professional photos. The last page had a picture of the 3 of them together, taken by a passerby at the park a few weeks earlier, looking for all the world like a real family. Helena held the album with tears in her eyes. "This is the best present anyone has ever given me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Yuri. Thank you for giving me something worth photographing," he replied softly. That night, after everyone had gone home and Bella was asleep upstairs, Yuri and Helena sat by the fireplace, her head on his chest and his arms around her, and talked about the future. They talked about Bella starting 3rd grade in the fall, about Yuri maybe training to become a head chef someday, about Helena's plans to expand her company into new cities. They talked about what it would be like to actually live together, to wake up next to each other every morning instead of stealing moments when they could. "I want that," Yuri said. "All of it. I want to build a life with you, Helena." "Then let us do it," she said simply. "We can take it slow, do it right, but let us commit to this, to each other." "I am committed," Yuri promised. "You and Bella are my whole world now." The new year brought changes, good ones. Helena and Yuri started looking at houses together, places that would be theirs rather than hers or his. They found a beautiful craftsman-style home in a good school district, with a big backyard and a modern kitchen, and enough bedrooms that Bella could have her own space, and they could have a guest room for when Nicole visited. The mortgage was more than Yuri could have afforded on his own, but Helena insisted they buy it together, putting both their names on the deed despite the vast difference in their financial contributions. "We are partners," she said firmly when he tried to argue. "Equal partners. I do not care who pays what. This is our home." They moved in together in March, on a bright Saturday morning with help from Marcus and some of the other restaurant staff. Bella was beside herself with excitement, running from room to room and planning where all her things would go. Helena had insisted the girl get to decorate her own bedroom however she wanted, and they spent the afternoon painting the walls a soft lavender color while music played, and they all sang along, slightly off-key. That evening, after Bella was asleep in her new room, Yuri and Helena stood in the backyard, looking up at the stars and marveling at how far they had come. "I keep thinking I am going to wake up and realize this is all a dream," Yuri admitted. "A year ago, I was terrified I would not be able to make rent. Now I am standing in the backyard of a house I own with a woman I love. It feels impossible." "It is not impossible," Helena said, turning to face him. "It is just what happens when good people find each other. You changed my life, Yuri. Before I met you, I was so focused on work and success that I forgot what it was like to be happy. You reminded me that there is more to life than board meetings and profit margins. You gave me a family. You gave me stability," Yuri countered. "You gave me the ability to provide for my daughter the way I always wanted to. You gave me a partner, someone who has my back and makes me want to be better. We saved each other, Helena." She kissed him then, under the stars in their backyard, and Yuri felt like the luckiest man in the world. Life settled into a new rhythm after that. Yuri continued working at Luminescence, and Marcus finally convinced him to start developing his own menu items. The specials he created became wildly popular, and Helena started talking about promoting him to head chef at one of her other restaurants. But Yuri was not in a hurry. He liked where he was, liked working with Marcus, liked having a schedule that allowed him to be present for Bella. Speaking of Bella, she was thriving. Her grades improved now that she had a stable home environment and 2 adults who could help with homework. She made new friends in the neighborhood, kids who came over for playdates and birthday parties. She started calling Helena Mom Helena, which made both adults cry the first time they heard it. Nicole noticed the changes too. When she came for her quarterly visit with Bella, she took one look at the house and the way her daughter had blossomed and pulled Yuri aside for a private conversation. "You did good," she said simply. "I know I was not much of a mother, and I am sorry for that. But you stepped up, and you found someone who is good for both of you. Bella is lucky to have you, both of you." It was the closest thing to an apology Yuri was ever going to get from his ex, and he decided to accept it with grace. They were never going to be friends, but they could be cordial for Bella's sake, and that was enough. As spring turned to summer, Helena and Yuri started talking more seriously about the future. They had been together for a year now, living together for 3 months, and everything felt solid and right. They knew each other's habits and quirks, had weathered disagreements and stress, and come through it all more in love than ever. Yuri knew he wanted to marry her. He had known for months, really, but he wanted to do it right. He wanted the proposal to be special, something worthy of the woman who had changed his life so completely. He started planning in secret, enlisting Bella's help because he wanted his daughter to be part of it. Together, they came up with a plan. In July, Yuri told Helena he wanted to take her on a date, just the two of them. He arranged for Bella to have a sleepover at her friend's house, and then he took Helena back to where it had all started, downtown Boston, near the bench where they had first met. "Why are we here?" Helena asked, confused but curious. "Because this is where it all began," Yuri said. "This is where I met a woman sitting on a bench, looking cold and lost. I gave her my jacket, never imagining that she would turn out to be the love of my life." Helena's eyes widened. Yuri, he got down on one knee right there on the sidewalk, pulling out a ring he had saved for months to buy. It was not the most expensive ring in the world, but it was beautiful, a simple diamond on a platinum band, and it had been chosen with care. "Helena Ortiz, you have given me more than I ever dreamed possible. You have given me love and partnership and a family. You have made me believe that I deserve good things, that my past does not define my future. I love you more than words can express, and I want to spend the rest of my life showing you how much. Will you marry me?" Helena was crying, tears streaming down her face as she nodded vigorously. "Yes," she managed to choke out. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." Yuri slid the ring onto her finger and stood up, and she threw her arms around his neck, kissing him with everything she had. Around them, passers-by started to clap and cheer, but Yuri barely noticed. All he could see was Helena, his Helena, looking at him like he had just given her the world. They were married 6 months later in a small, intimate ceremony in their backyard, surrounded by the people who mattered most. Marcus was Yuri's best man, and Bella was the flower girl, taking her duties very seriously as she scattered rose petals down the makeshift aisle. Helena's parents flew in from Arizona, and while Yuri had been nervous about meeting them, they welcomed him with open arms, clearly just happy to see their daughter so in love. The ceremony was simple and heartfelt. They had written their own vows, and there was not a dry eye in the house by the time they finished. Yuri promised to love and support Helena through whatever challenges came their way, to be her partner in every sense of the word. Helena promised to cherish him and Bella, to build a life full of laughter and love, and the kind of everyday magic that made a house a home. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, their kiss was met with cheers and applause. Bella ran up to hug them both, and they stood there for a moment, the three of them wrapped in each other's arms, a family in every way that mattered. The reception was held in the same backyard, with string lights hung overhead and a local band playing music that had everyone dancing. Yuri and Helena's first dance was to an old Frank Sinatra song, and as they swayed together under the stars, Yuri thought about how impossibly far he had come. Year and a half ago, he had been struggling to survive, working himself to the bone and terrified that he was failing his daughter. Now he was dancing at his own wedding, surrounded by people who loved him, married to a woman who was his equal and his partner in every way. "What are you thinking about?" Helena murmured, her head resting on his shoulder. "Just how lucky I am," Yuri said honestly. "How grateful I am that you were sitting on that bench that night. How glad I am that I decided to give you my jacket." "Best decision you ever made," Helena teased. "Second best," Yuri corrected. "The best decision was saying yes when you offered me the job. Everything good in my life came from that choice." "Then I guess we are both lucky," Helena said, pulling back to look at him. "I was in such a dark place that night. I felt betrayed and lost and like I could not trust anyone. And then you came along, this complete stranger who helped me without expecting anything in return. You restored my faith in people, Yuri. You reminded me that kindness still exists in the world." They kissed again, long and sweet, and around them, their friends and family cheered. Life after the wedding was everything Yuri had hoped it would be and more. He and Helena fell into the rhythm of married life with surprising ease, learning how to navigate the small conflicts and compromises that came with sharing a life. They argued occasionally, usually about stupid things like whose turn it was to do the dishes or whether they should paint the living room, but they always talked it out, always remembered that they were on the same team. Bella continued to flourish. She was doing well in school, her teachers praising her kindness and creativity. She had taken up gymnastics and art classes, activities that Helena insisted on paying for because she wanted Bella to have every opportunity. Yuri had learned to accept her help with grace, understanding that it came from a place of love rather than pity. A year into their marriage, Helena came home from work with a strange expression on her face. They were in the kitchen, Yuri making dinner while Bella did homework at the table when Helena pulled him aside. "I need to talk to you about something," she said, her voice nervous. Yuri immediately went on alert. "Is everything okay?" "Everything is fine," Helena assured him quickly. "Better than fine, actually, but I have been thinking about something and I wanted to run it by you before I made any decisions." "Okay," Yuri said slowly. "What is it?" Helena took a deep breath. "I have been thinking about expanding the family. Not through adoption or anything, though we could explore that too if you wanted. But I was thinking about having a baby. Together. I know we have never really discussed it before, and I do not want to pressure you, but I have always wanted to be a mother, and with you, I feel like I could actually do it." "What do you think?" Yuri stared at her, processing. "A baby. Another child." He glanced over at Bella, who was absorbed in her math homework, and tried to imagine what it would be like to do it all again. The sleepless nights, the diapers, the constant worry. But also the joy, the wonder, the privilege of watching a new person grow and develop. "Are you sure?" he asked. "You have to know what you would be signing up for. Kids are exhausting." "I know," Helena said, "but I also know that I want this. I want to have a baby with you, Yuri. I want our child, a mix of both of us. I want to experience all of it, the good and the hard, but only if you want it too. I need you to be honest with me." Yuri pulled her close, wrapping his arms around her. "I want it," he said. "I want to have a baby with you. I want to give Bella a sibling. I want to watch you become a mom in every sense of the word. Let us do it." Helena let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob, and kissed him hard. "Really, really," Yuri confirmed. "Let us have a baby." They told Bella over dessert that night, carefully explaining that they were going to try to have a baby and that if it worked, she would be a big sister. Bella's reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. "A baby," she squealed. "Can I help pick the name? Can I help take care of it? Will it be a boy or a girl?" They laughed at her excitement, answering her questions as best they could. It was a perfect moment, full of hope and possibility, and Yuri felt his heart overflow with love for his family. It took a few months, but eventually, Helena discovered she was pregnant. She took the test early one morning before work, and Yuri could hear her gasp from the bathroom. He rushed in to find her staring at the positive test with tears streaming down her face. "We are having a baby," she whispered, and Yuri swept her into his arms, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. The pregnancy was mostly smooth. Helena had some morning sickness in the first trimester that left her exhausted and miserable, but Yuri took care of her, making sure she stayed hydrated and fed. Bella was fascinated by the whole process, asking a million questions about how the baby was growing and when they would be able to meet their sibling. They found out at the 20-week ultrasound that they were having a boy, and Yuri felt a strange mix of excitement and terror. He had experience raising a daughter, but a son was different. He wondered what it would be like, what kind of man his son would grow up to be. Helena must have sensed his anxiety because she took his hand and squeezed it. "We are going to be great parents to him," she said firmly. "Just like we are to Bella." "I know," Yuri said. "I am just afraid I will screw it up somehow." "You will not," Helena assured him. "You are the best father I have ever seen. Our son is going to be so lucky to have you." They prepared the nursery together, painting the walls a soft blue-gray and assembling furniture, late into the night. Bella helped pick out decorations, choosing a mobile with little airplanes that spun slowly in the breeze from the window. It felt surreal and wonderful, building a space for the child they had created together. Helena went into labor on a cold February morning, 2 weeks before her due date. Yuri was at work when she called, her voice tight with pain but also excitement. "It is time," she said. "The contractions are coming pretty regularly. Can you come home?" Yuri alerted Marcus and practically ran out of the restaurant, his heart pounding. He picked up Bella from school on the way, having already arranged with Helena's parents that they would take care of her during the labor, and then drove to the hospital, trying to keep calm despite his racing thoughts. The labor was long and difficult. Helena was in pain, gripping Yuri's hand so hard he thought she might break bones, but she never complained. She was focused and determined, and Yuri had never admired her more than he did in those hours, watching her bring their son into the world through sheer force of will. When the baby was finally born, his cry filling the room, Yuri felt something in his chest crack open. The nurse placed the baby on Helena's chest, and they both stared down at him in wonder. He was tiny and perfect, with a shock of dark hair and Helena's nose and Yuri's mouth. "Hello, baby," Helena whispered, tears streaming down her face. "We have been waiting for you." They named him Mateo Yuri Patterson Ortiz, and he became the center of their universe. Bella was an amazing big sister, gentle and patient with her baby brother, always wanting to help feed him or rock him to sleep. Helena took maternity leave from work, and for those first few months, they existed in a sleep-deprived haze of diapers and feedings and endless wonder at the tiny person they had created. Yuri had forgotten what it was like to have a newborn, the way they consumed every moment of your time and energy. But he had also forgotten the magic of it, the way a baby's smile could make you forget how exhausted you were, the way their tiny hand wrapped around your finger could make you feel like the most important person in the world. Helena was a natural mother, just as Yuri had known she would be. She was patient and attentive, learning Mateo's cues and responding to them with a confidence that surprised them both. She sang to him in Spanish, the language of her parents, teaching him lullabies that her own mother had sung to her. As Mateo grew from a newborn into an infant and then a toddler, their family continued to evolve. Bella started middle school, suddenly interested in makeup and boys and all the complicated things that came with growing up. Helena's company continued to expand, and she promoted Marcus to head chef at Luminescence, offering Yuri the position of executive chef at a new restaurant they were opening in Cambridge. Yuri accepted, ready for the challenge and excited about the creative control it would give him. The new restaurant, which they named Ember, focused on comfort food elevated with technique and care, exactly the kind of cooking Yuri loved. It was an instant success, with critics praising the menu and the warm, welcoming atmosphere. Life was busy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. They had family dinners every night, all 4 of them gathered around the table sharing stories about their days. They took vacations to the beach and to visit Helena's parents in Arizona. They celebrated birthdays and holidays and all the small moments in between that made up a life. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Helena surprised Yuri by taking him back to the bench where they had first met. It was late evening, and the area was quiet, the city settling into its nighttime rhythm. "Do you remember?" Helena asked, sitting down on the bench and pulling Yuri down beside her. "How could I forget?" Yuri replied, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. "I saw this beautiful woman sitting here, shivering in the cold, and I knew I had to help." "You had no idea what you were starting," Helena said with a laugh. "If someone had told you that night that 5 years later you would be married to that woman with 2 kids and a successful career, would you have believed them?" "Not for a second," Yuri admitted. "I would have thought they were crazy. I was just trying to survive back then, to make sure Bella had a roof over her head and food to eat. I was not thinking about love or happiness or any of it. And now," Helena asked softly. Now I have everything I ever wanted and things I did not even know I could want, Yuri said. I have you and Bella and Matteo. I have a career I love. I have a home and stability and a future that does not terrify me. I have love, Helena. So much love that sometimes I do not know what to do with it all. Helena turned to face him, her eyes shining with emotion. You give it back, she said simply. You give it to your family and your friends and everyone whose life you touch. You have the biggest heart of anyone I have ever met, Yuri. It is one of the things I love most about you. They kissed there on the bench, just like they had years ago, except this time there was no uncertainty, no fear. There was only love and gratitude and the bone-deep certainty that they were exactly where they were supposed to be. As they walked back to their car hand in hand, Yuri thought about that cold November night 5 years ago when he had given his jacket to a stranger. It had been such a small act of kindness, costing him nothing but a moment of discomfort. He had not expected anything in return, had not imagined that it would change his life, but it had. That one decision, that simple choice to help someone in need, had set everything else in motion. It had led him to Helena, to love, to the family and life he had now. It had taught him that kindness mattered, that small acts could have ripple effects beyond anything you could imagine. And it had taught him that sometimes, when you give what you have to someone who needs it, the universe finds a way to give back to you 1,000-fold. He had given Helena his jacket to keep her warm, and she had given him everything: love, family, security, joy. They drove home through the quiet streets, back to the house where their children were waiting with Helena's parents. Bella had probably stayed up past her bedtime reading, and Matteo would be winding up for his nightly burst of energy before crashing hard. It would be chaos and noise, and exactly the kind of beautiful mess that made a house a home. Yuri reached over and took Helena's hand as they drove, threading their fingers together. She glanced over at him with a soft smile, the kind that still made his heart skip a beat even after all these years. I love you, he said simply. I love you too, Helena replied, now and always. And as they pulled into the driveway of their home, their life waiting for them just beyond the front door, Yuri knew with absolute certainty that he was the luckiest man alive. He had started with nothing but a good heart and a willingness to help a stranger, and he had ended up with everything that mattered. It was more than he had ever dreamed possible, and it was just the beginning. There would be more years ahead of them, more challenges and triumphs, more moments of joy and struggle. They would watch their children grow up, would celebrate achievements and comfort through disappointments. They would grow old together, their love deepening with each passing year. But for now, in this moment, everything was exactly as it should be. Yuri Patterson had given his jacket to a cold woman on a November night, not knowing she was a millionaire who would fall for him. And in doing so, he had found his forever, his happily ever after, his home. The end.